So hey everyone, welcome back. I keep saying that the next thing we're going to do is make toasts, and then I keep forgetting that there's style elements that we haven't added yet. So before we can do that, we actually have to incorporate in many. So what we have done is we have been styling our page using CSS. So for example, we've added a background color, we've added some style to our H1. So for our heading, we've said that we want the heading to be white. We said the color of it, we've imported a font. Now these are our own custom written fonts. The whole point of a front end, the whole point of a CSS framework is that um, there are websites where that framework has already been written for us. The CSS has been written for us, and we just take the components that we like that's already been styled and we insert it into our work. That makes our work a lot easier to use. So the one that I'm going to go with is called DaisyUI. There are others such as Bootstrap, Materialize, and several others. This one I like. It just looks very modern. And to incorporate, it's very simple. On the website, it says how to use. The correct way to use it is to install it, but because we're using Codepen, and this could be used with just about any website, we're going to use something called CDN, right? Which is, I remember mentioning this before, it's Content Delivery Network, but you know what, did I already do this in one of our previous videos? That's shocking that I forgot. There's too much time between each video. So simply, these two lines here just need to be copied into the head, and then we can start using all the components that are already made into our work. And we'll do an example because we've got some buttons already, so we're going to style those buttons using Daisy UI, and we're also going to add a navigation bar. So in CodePen, we don't usually have the tags that say HTML, body, and head. We could put them in. So if I just make this a bit bigger for a second. So for example, a normal web page, not on CodePen, would look a bit like this. If I just do this. So if I say HTML, and then inside the HTML tags, we would have head tags, and we'd also have some body tags. And now the two lines of code that we would have to insert, oh, by the way, so these lines of code would normally be here inside the body tags. And then the code that we need from Daisy UI would be here. So we say copy, oops, and then we put it back into head. And then you'll soon see in a second that, can you see things have changed now? Because now we have to apply Daisy UI's styling. So that works. The good thing about Codepen is that we don't have to do it in this way. It comes kind of ready built. So I could get rid of all this here put it back to what it was. Let's just put it back to, if I'll undo a few times and put it back to what it was. Because Codepen has another way of inserting the exact same thing. So if you're not using Codepen and you're using another developer, then that's fine. Use the method I just showed you. Otherwise, in Codepen, if we go to CSS and we click on settings, we just have to scroll down to where it says add external style sheets. And so we're going to say Daisy UI, and it does exactly the same thing. So you're going to see those changes happen again in just a moment. When I click save, you can see that it's now back to what it was. So these buttons and things still work, but we now have to style them. So now we have Daisy UI sort of in the background helping us style our page. So we still have our other styles. So for example, the heading is still H1, and look, you can still see we've still got that font that we added. It's still white, and the background is still light blue. But now we want to start using some of the components of Daisy UI. And to start with, I'm just going to do buttons very quickly. So if we go to the Daisy UI website again, and we go to components, I'm going to go to button, and let's just take a basic button to begin with. And it's really simple. If we look at the HTML code, the only thing that's missing for us to use exactly the same stuff, these styles here. Okay, so I'm going to go with just a basic button here. So if we go to HTML, we just need to copy the class container. Oh, we don't have a container here. If we go to utilities, there should be one for container. Right. So DaisyUI is built off the back of another CSS framework called TailwindCSS. And it says here the container class sets the max width of an element to match the minimum width of the current breakpoint. I'm going to add this here, MX auto, which should hopefully fix the problem that we had. Container MX auto, which it doesn't. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to center all the items a little bit. So as you can see, there is no padding between the side and the icons and the text that we have. Now, DaisyUI doesn't come built in with some things, but it utilizes, oops, sorry, we type first. It utilizes the components of Tailwind CSS because DaisyUI is built off another CSS framework called Tailwind. Now, what I've done here is I've inserted all of my components into a container. Now, this on its own doesn't seem to work, and sometimes I find that Codepen glitches a little bit. So if we go to Tailwind and we go to layout, sorry, in DaisyUI, it actually opens up the page from Tailwind CSS, and it gives us an idea here what we can do. It tells us about the container class that we can use, and it tells us about how it centers the container using the MX, or M standing for I believe, sorry, X standing for horizontal, and this adds a padding of oh gosh, what does that mean? PX utilities. If we go, I think it's about 16 pixels of memory, but it's basically shorthand way of writing that. And so if I'm going to borrow that, and again, as I said, I think Codepen sometimes glitches and it doesn't always work the way you want it to. And in my example here, it hasn't moved it off the edges, but I'm going to leave that there anyway. Sometimes when you save and refresh, it begins to add the padding. So next then is, we said we were going to add a navigation bar. So we'll go back to here. Let's use one of the Tailwind navigation bars. And the way the navigation bar works in DaisyUI is, again, very simple. You add just a class of what you want to add in. So here I can see a navbar with a background base color of 100 is going to be a very light gray. Or is it actually white? It looks more or less like it's white here. And it means that the items are going to be aligned to the left. And you can actually see that the button is kind of like a ghost effect to it. What I want is the text to be in the middle. The way you achieve that in DaisyUI is, if we scroll down as an example here, there's one with text in the middle and there's items on the sides. And if we go back to here, it looks a lot more complicated than it is. But we're going to break it down, and we're going to remove all the other icons from the left and the right as well. So we're just going to have what's in the middle. So I'm going to open that up. In fact, I'll just copy the first item. So it says, well, I'll copy that first line. So this is going to be our navigation bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of the centering because I don't want my navigation bar to be centered. No, actually, well, if it does work, it works. So we'll add it here. So we'll add our centering there. And what I'll do is, oh, there's my cat. I'm going to close the navigation bar off here. So that should add a navigation bar. There, you can see it's added it, and my heading is gone. Well, the heading is still there, but the problem is that the text on my heading was white, and so is a navigation bar. If I change that to, I believe it's 200 or 300, it should make it a darker shade. I can now see my text a little bit there. Let's make it an even darker shade. Let's go 300.